Everyone, thank you so much for attending 9 to 5 Georgia's monthly chapter meeting. If you're new to 9 to 5, we've been around for nearly 5 decades, and our mission is to build a movement to achieve economic justice for women. As a grassroots member-based organization, our members are affected by the issues we work on every day, issues like low-wage jobs, the erosions of social safety nets, lack of paid sick and family leave time, childcare, and civic engagement. My name is Mica Whitfield, and I am the Georgia State Director with 9 to 5. And I also want to give a huge shout out to our amazing Georgia team, Amna, Jewel, Shanda, Allison, Latoya, and Sharon, and that helped put this event together, but most importantly, do this work every single day. So I just want to give them a quick nod. And again, to you all for showing up this evening to be a part of this important conversation. So today we're going to highlight the pay wage gap and really demanding equal pay for Black women. 66% of working age women in Georgia are employed, and Black women have the highest rate of labor participation in our state. But we are literally fueling the Georgia economy. Yet we continue to earn less money than our counterparts, making on average about 63 cents for every dollar earned by a white man in our state. Additionally, women comprise nearly half of Georgia's workforce and are primary or co-breadwinners in their homes. So we are literally fueling the Georgia economy, trying to make a dollar out of 63 cents, and running the workforce in our home. And with a looming economic recession, as well as a pay wage gap, where does that leave Black women's opportunities in the marketplace with fewer jobs? Of course, COVID has hit us all hard. And so what we wanted to highlight this year for Black Women's Equal Pay Day was the rise of entrepreneurship amongst Black women. And so Black women, we are solution focused, right? And so Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America. And more importantly, this trend is on the rise, and we wanted to create a platform where we could talk about the pay divide, but then as well as successes and challenges of Black women entrepreneurs, as well as how we can recession-proof ourselves for economic liberation and justice. So if y'all are ready to get into that conversation, I know I am, and we're an amazing group of panelists to share on the topic of EntreprenHERship. And in a moment, I will introduce those panelists, but I think as housekeeping, we have our team members managing the chat. So we will be having an opportunity later for questions there. So we will just jump right in and I will introduce our panelists. Rhonda Barnett has been a child care professional for more than a decade. Her corporate background and love for education and youth are what facilitated the establishment of BFLA, her business, in her local community. Barnett's Center actually started as a home daycare and moved into a full-service child care 5 years after its inception. With extensive instruction in early child care development, Barnett now performs many leadership roles to guarantee students, teachers, staff, and parents are equipped with the best resources to succeed. Barnett is also a Bright from the Start approved trainer, helping educators within the state of Georgia gain the appropriate certifications to teach. Gloria Strauthers is the principal of Exodus Management and Consulting, LLC, a Georgia-based management consulting firm founded in 2016 that specializes in solving 72% of businesses' problems and opportunities that originate from broken processes. Gloria has amassed 21 plus years of impressive government and corporate portfolio experiences before retiring in 2016. She is a multi-industry credentialed professional, to include being an independent certified coach, teacher, and speaker of the world-renowned John Maxwell team. She is also a certified SCORE mentor and has mentored over 80 SCORE clients to date. Our next panelist is Amanda Howe. She is the Director of Strategic Campaigns for Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. Formerly, she was the State Director for 9 to 5 Georgia. So welcome back, Amanda. And Education Specialist for LifeLink of Georgia and founding member of Political Rascals PAC of Savannah, Georgia. She's a servant to our community, and her passion for volunteer efforts include holding roles as co-coordinator of the Savannah Black Heritage Festival Committee, member of the Savannah chapter of the Links Incorporated, board member of Georgia Shift and Reform, graduate of the Georgia Win Leadership Academy, and volunteer for Planned Parent and co-organizer for Women's March Savannah. And our final panelist is MarRhonde Lumpkin-Lotson. She is the Business Opportunity Manager in Economic Development Department with the City of Savannah, where she oversees the city's Small Business Enterprise Program, the MWBE's Minority Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program, as well as the business education programs targeted to new and future entrepreneurs, helping them start and grow their businesses. Before joining to the City of Savannah team, MarRhonde held the post of City Administrator, Chief Administrator Officer for the town of Thunderbolt, Georgia, where she served for 6 years. She earned the distinction in this appointment because not only was she their first African-American city manager, she was the first female manager as well. So as you can see, we have a well-versed group here of panelists to share with you all this evening. So if our panelists are ready, I'm going to jump right into our first question. Can you all talk about the difference between economic justice and economic freedom for Black women in America?
All right, well, I guess I'll be first to go. Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Gloria. And to answer our first question, first, when I was preparing for this, I really want to get the clarification of what those items are, what is the definition of each of those, so we can kind of understand some of the terminology or the answer that I'm about to give. So economic justice, when you think about it, it's essentially the preface that our economic institutions, like the IRS or the Federal Reserve systems, are built on the moral and ethical principles for which they operate. And they also operate with an awareness that the economy will be more successful if it's fairer, okay? So economic freedom is essentially your right or your freedom to produce, to trade, or to consume any goods or services without, force or fraud. So when you think in terms of African American women, what does that look like for us as women? Well, economic justice for Black women means addressing the wage gap to begin with, and any other deficiencies that we might have in individual wages. For example, making the earned income credit available for all low to moderate income families, not just those with children, because guess what? Single people, we can benefit from the EIC, especially come tax time, right? The other thing is how that looks like is implementing a progressive tax system, which means more of the tax burden is actually weighted down on the higher income wages. Now, I'm not trying to bash those who make higher income, but I think it's only fair if you make more money, you should be able to sustain the taxes related to that income. Because essentially the tax structure, the way it's set up now, is that it actually hurts low income individuals. So, economic freedom. So this is what I really wanted to kind of delve into. 62% of African American women started a business, okay? They said, I want to start this business because of my passion, okay? But according to a recent 2020 study I read in, I think it's Guided Financial Services, African American owned women actually earn on average $24,000 per firm versus the $142,900 among other ethnic groups. So that is actually any other ethnic group of women-owned businesses, okay? The other factor is the lack of economic and business resources for African American in those particular communities. Me, I'm a certified SCORE mentor, but if you say SCORE in some of these areas, they're like, what on earth are you talking about? Basketball scoring or what? And I'm like, no, financial.
Right.
So, this lack of educational awareness actually creates the lack of education on how to properly start and manage a successful business. So economic freedom for us means the ability to manage, start, and grow businesses that we can control, that we can prosper in our communities and having the resources needed to sustain, to learn, to grow, and to train other people to do the same thing that we are doing. But we also have to take a look at it how our local states and cities are actually promoting entrepreneurship, particularly in women. I would suggest that freedom for us means our city, our states are actually looking at the economic policies and regulations that they are created for us. Is it deterring us from opening businesses, or is it actually helping us want to go out and start our business? You know, if you think about it, Georgia, Florida, and Texas actually has the highest rate of Black-owned businesses. And that is because why? Those states offer significant amount of programs to assist not only Black women, but African Americans in whole. You know, banks like Wells Fargo, other banks that are owned by other African Americans, they're actually setting aside monies to help us start those businesses. So those are some of the things that create economic justice and economic freedom from my particular viewpoint. I'm really eager to hear what everyone else has to say.
I'll jump right in. So, continuing the conversation about economic justice, the lens to our abilities to get access to capital. As Gloria shared, we have an incredible um, statistic as it relates to to starting our own business and job creation for our own communities. Last from 2007 to about 2018, 2.4 million businesses were started by African American women. However, in closer analysis of those businesses, it opens our eyes to the realization that the lending rates and the amount of capitalization of our businesses is far behind. There was a recent study conducted and reported upon by CNBC that said that African American women entrepreneurs are funded at nearly 1/4 of the rate of their Caucasian counterparts. So, what does this really mean for us? This means that when African American women start businesses, they are running the risk of not being capitalized to the full extent to what they actually need, which forces them to find funding in other locations and in other areas. Oftentimes, we will find ourselves going into our savings and our retirement accounts, which are not desirable because it puts our futures in jeopardy. But the opportunity for doing better is always there. And so by opening up these types of conversations, we'll break down those systemic walls and allow for us to have great opportunities for funding.
I absolutely agree with both ladies. You know, piggybacking off what Gloria was saying in regards to the tax structure, you know, even if you're not single, you may have adult children. And when you get to a certain income, you don't qualify for that EIC, but I still could use that EIC money. So I definitely think, you know, the tax structure needs to be reweighted in a way that is more fair, because as you're growing in business and you're starting to do better, you're making more money, you're owing more money, and it's putting more of a weight, a heaviness on your ability to continue to be able to grow for your community, to continue to be able to offer jobs and offer places for me being a child care, places to keep these children. The prices have to match with what I have to put out. Additionally, when I look at economic freedom, the way I read the question is, you know, economic freedom is relative. So before you go out and start your business, figure out what it means for you to be financially free. You can't go and mimic someone else's journey, because that may not work for you. That may not be what you want. You can have somebody who just say, hey, I just want to be able to pay my bills without having to clock in for anybody and be free. Somebody else might say, well, hey, I want to go this far. I want to start another business. I want this type of house. I want to have college savings for my children. So you have to first define what financial freedom means to you. Find something that you're passionate in if you want to do business, because if you're not passionate in your business, you're not going to take it as far as you want. All of a sudden, you're not going to find time to do this. You can't get around to making this happen. Once you find that passion and you can understand what it means for you to be free, then you have the ability to take off from there.
I think when the question was posed to me, I'm sorry, I'm Amanda Hollowell, one of the panelists. Hello. And so I agree with all the ladies before, but I also looked at that question from a social justice lens. And what is economic justice in this state versus what we look at the definition. And economic justice, as people move forward, is actually the correction or reformative of what the economy currently does with Black and brown folks, right? Which is there's a lack of access, it's the disadvantage. And through this sort of economic justice work, we're trying to right many wrongs of a structure that is wholly based in a systemic racist structure, right? Against folks of color, on the backs of folks of color, especially on the backs of Black and brown women in Georgia. When I looked at economic freedom and all the stories that the women were sharing before, one of the things that was that popped up to me was that someone just posted a meme recently where it was a young white woman. It was like part of those like boss babes, boss CEOs type of things, right? And they're like, "You girl, go. This is the time to go get it, girl," and blah blah blah. But they're like, in the same breath, they're like, "But I borrowed $40,000 from my parents to start my business." Black and brown folks don't have that opportunity. Our parents barely have the savings to keep their retirement going, right? So how dare we think that they're liquid like that to go start our dreams and hope that our dreams make a profit? Because everyone knows what the success rate of opening up a business is. Because you open up and build it doesn't mean it's going to bring a return on investment. So there's a risk in there too, right? To pursue your freedom. And I think my thing would be for economic freedom would be for Black women to pursue equity and get the same loans as white men, the same credit access as white men, and the same ability to fail forward as their white male counterparts. That's economic freedom for Black women in this moment to me.
Well, thank you all. I feel like you all answered that from such a diverse perspective, really define that, what does it mean for me as my passions? What does it mean in terms of access to capital, social justice plan? So thank you all for that. What advice would you give to our members, most of whom are Black women who are trying to start their own businesses and build wealth? And I think that key there is wealth as well.
Exactly. I'll jump right in. So to my sisters who are considering trying to start their own business and from that be able to sustain themselves and build for their families as others have done for generations. I have to really stress that as a solid, well thought out, not rushed plan be formed. You've heard the adage year after year after year, all through your life, that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Do not start your business simply from an idea or something that you think that you like and find out that it's something that you enjoy and it's a very narrow scope. That passion has to translate into a profitable venture that can provide for you, your family, and your children. So I'm gonna ask that you incorporate doing a comprehensive research analysis on your business and whether your concept, your good, your service is a viable one. That would include all the way to a solid business plan that takes into account a forecast, costs of creating your good, service, and providing that service. What is the cost of doing business? Will your business be brick and mortar? Will your business be web-based? You have to also identify who your customer is, know where they are, and incessantly, unapologetically pursue them. Let them know you're here, you're good, your service is available to them, and then take it to them often and aggressively. You have to price yourself competitively with those in the market. And customer service sets yourself apart in that because no one wants to do business with someone that doesn't appreciate their business. So these are the types of things that I would highlight for those who are considering doing business. And the final thing is to live your passion. If this is truly your desire to own and operate your own business, it will be the thing that drives you all night long, early in the morning. It becomes your mate. It becomes your the thing that you love to do. You can't think about anything else other than this business, this venture, and taking care of it. It's your baby. And so I ask that you take the time and do a comprehensive, well thought out business plan, because that business plan, while it is for you and it is able to be amended as times change and as you evolve in your thoughts and your projections of what your business is to be, is also a document that you're going to take to anyone that funds, there's going to be an investor or a funder in your business. It explains your vision. It is comprehensive. It's backed up by data. It's backed up by numbers. It's backed up that says that your idea is solid and you want them to do business with you. It's an invitation, more or less, to do business and invest in you and your vision, and explains how you're going to take the world by storm with your vision.
MarRhonde, that is definitely on point. That is what I tell my clients, particularly SCORE clients, all the time. But one thing I want to add to piggyback off of that, we have to understand that talents are local, but gifts are global. So when you begin to start a business, you have to clarify, is this just something that I'm good at, that I like to do, or is this something that I'm willing to take to the marketplace and give to the world? That's going to determine not whether or not you stay successful within the first year of business, because 55% of businesses actually shut the doors their first year. Why? Because they don't understand the business behind the business. You know, a lot of people come to me and they tell me this: I have an MBA, I just graduated, and I want to start my own business. And it becomes a headbutt mess because they think they know more than the person that's actually trying to mentor them. I'm not knocking education, because education is good. But until you go out there and actually experience running a business, you have to go into this particular, uh, you know, venture as if you don't know anything, because you're going to need everybody to help you along the way to build that business plan. And I just actually did a webinar on the business plan with SCORE last week. And so that's your number one guiding tool right there, is your business plan. Why would I want to do business with somebody who don't even know why they in business their own self? You see what I'm saying? I can't do that. And so you build your business off of the know, like, and trust factor. One, I have to know you. Two, I have to like you. And, you know, I might not like you, but if I can halfway trust you, I'll try to do business with you. So one, my advice to anybody who wants to start their business, particularly Black women, please do your research, okay? Understand your market. Understand, is your product something that the market needs, okay? If you just got a great idea, it could be a great idea, but are you willing to test that against your hypothesis? Are you willing to go out to test it against customer needs? You know, so we have to actually analyze all those different pieces and parts of a business. You know, those are things that you have to quantify and qualify with data as well. Just like MarRhonde mentioned, if you don't know how to do financial projections, well, honey, you in bad shape right there, because you have got to know, how much money do I need to stay afloat, or how long will I have to use this startup money to break even. Those are terms that you actually have to understand and actually able to apply during the course of your business. One, I would say, go the extra mile. Get educated in running a business. Find resources in your local community. They have SBACs, they have women business development centers, your local community colleges, your educational centers. There's no reason for you to not at least have the structure or the foundation of starting a business. Building wealth, it takes a long time. It's not going to happen overnight. And wealth starts with a mindset. In order to run a business, you have to have the mindset of a business person or an entrepreneur. It's so many times where I hear individuals, They say, oh, I got this business, and you show up at the business and the sign say 10 o'clock and they just strolling in at 10:30, then they looking at you like you got a problem. That's not how business people run a business. Okay. So if you're still at that mindset, oh, I can go and come as I please, then you don't need to be in business, because the overall goal to starting a business is something that you can pass down to generations to generations. The other thing is work with a SCORE mentor. I'm a certified SCORE mentor, but we're all over the place. You can go to score.org. There's a ton of information to help you start your business, to grow it. And also count the costs. When you sit down and you come up with the ideal, I have a lot of people who want to start a cleaning business because I'm a certified cleaning professional. They think cleaning is simply picking up a broom and mop and a piece of rags and we good. But no, it's machinery that costs. You have to have insurance liability. How are you going to sustain yourself till you get your first customer? Who's going to fund all of this? Where you going to get the capital? Are you going to be brick and mortar? Are you going to work from home? Those are things that you have to take in consideration of running a business. So those are some of the things that I would advice I would give to someone starting a business. And when you want to build wealth, first of all, you got to be disciplined in your own personal finances. If you don't have the credit that you need right now, if you're steady going out getting nails done, hair done, and trying to buy the latest, everything, you're not ready. Okay, you need to be disciplined in your spending, disciplined in your agendas for the day. Those are things that make you successful as a businesswoman.
I absolutely agree with both of these ladies. For me, when I started my business, I think oftentimes we put the cart before the horse. My business kind of fell into my lap by me helping someone. But then I really started, I realized it was my passion. And I said, okay, so now what am I going to do to move this business from my basement to the next level? I went straight to the SBA website. I learned how to write a business plan from there. I also found the resources I needed on that website. The SBA website can give you a lot. I wasn't aware of SCORE at the time, but now I'm also aware of SCORE. There's also Access Capital for Entrepreneurs has a women's business center in Norcross. They can give you all the information and coaching. I advise these ladies to get coaching, know your market. Even if you're going to have a brick and mortar, where it's located depends on the area and what scale of business that you're trying to have. So don't just say, oh, I see this empty building, let me go ahead and try to get that lease. No, that might not be the place for the product or service that you're trying to sell. So you really, really have to research. You have to be passionate about it. You have to put the time in it, and it is sacrifice. Piggybacking off of what Gloria said, you might be driving around in a car that costs you $800 a month, but could you get around in something that costs you $500 so you can have a little bit more leeway with what you're trying to do? Business is all about sacrifices, especially those first to year 3 normally. Yeah, right, 3. Yeah, usually the first 3 years, it is a sacrifice. You're gonna have to figure out how to do a lot of things for yourself and buy a lot of things on sale. And you can't try to keep up with anyone else because your goals, your visions, and your focus all have to align to make this business really work. And then once you have that secret, then building the wealth, comes along with it. As long as you stay diligent, you stay on top of everything, you make sure that you are not robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're making sure that you are fully covered insurance wise. I would even say seek legal counsel, seek a business coach, someone that can help you get there. One of the best experiences I had was dealing with a strategic marketer and planner that was able to take every single expense that I had in my business for me to understand a price point where I should be at was selling my services. So I advise them to get all of that done so you don't find yourself in trouble. A lot of people don't have the tenacity to make it through those first couple of road bumps, so then they just stop their vision. Well, let's just eliminate the road bumps and educate ourselves and do the research in order to be able to make sure that the ride is as smooth as possible.
Thank you all. It's stormy here, so I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. But You can. Okay, yeah, it got pretty bad the last few minutes.
If I can just jump back
Please,
in just a
yeah.
quick second. For an entrepreneur to be as best prepared as possible, level set your expectations. Opening and starting a well thought out business that is set for success does not happen overnight. I was really, I guess, entertained, for lack of a better word, as I was preparing for today. I was reading about anecdotal research that was conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank, and they were talking to female entrepreneurs, and in some of their anecdotal reporting, based on the focus groups that they were holding for their research, talked about some of the sentiments that sent African American women into entrepreneurship or considering that for themselves. And it was things such as African American women felt as though that they were not getting anywhere in their current workplace, and they wanted to create a business that would be something that would be just for them, and would provide them that economic freedom that they envisioned or dreamed of. They had been passed over for promotions time after time, and were growing weary of that circumstance, and oftentimes were asked to train their boss. And so these circumstances infuriated them and fueled that burning desire for them to, well, I'm gonna just start my own business. But you have to level set your expectations to know that you're going to have to plan for 2 to 3 years before you will even open your doors. And then it's another 1 to 3 years that will be very rocky, as my colleague Rhonda shared, that really will divide the successful ventures from the ones that are not going to be successful. So just manage your expectations and know that it does not happen overnight, but it can happen.
I also wanted to like just level set too, because I think y'all ladies were just bringing like so much big ideas, and like also there there are some folks who like just need extra revenue. And there is nothing wrong with creating a business to have multiple streams of revenue coming into your home while you have your full-time gig, if you have that time to run that side hustle that pays those extra bills that you're coming up short on, right? So, and I think even then though, it still needs to be thought out, well planned, and make sure that the risk as you go into that does not deplete what you built or risk so many things. But I think like there's so many ways to look at this for Black women in this moment, that you can have a side hustle that creates multiple streams of revenue, or you can really harness what the power is that is in you with your expertise and skill set, and really build something out that's amazing too.
You know, Amanda, I'm glad you brought that back up, because it just occurred to me. A lot of people or women tend to minimize their ideas because I'm working a full-time job, so therefore what I'm doing is not really a business. I want to encourage you guys, just like Rhonda said, I started my business in 2016. I did not make a profit till year 4. I could have easily given up. But see, with me, I retired. I had already built up, a nest egg. But for some, it's going to take a while. And don't despise small beginnings. The time where people are getting these tax refunds, they're getting these rebate checks, you take that money aside and you say, look, I'm going to put some aside towards my dream. Do something to invest in yourself. And that's what I did prior to me even retirement. I got as many certifications as I could. I got as many degrees as I could. So when I retired, my kids are off to college and stuff now. I'm okay. But if you think that's going to happen, it took me 20 some years to do that. So don't minimize the fact that you might be selling paparazzi jewelry. Girl, do your thing, okay? Sell it. Do not minimize that you creating t-shirts. If that is what you are passionate about, do it. Don't let anyone tell you that what you're doing ain't big, because guess what? In order for you to get big, you got to believe it. You got to see it. Because until you envision yourself being economically freedom, or however that looks to you, it might be able just paying off, debt, or putting your mom in a better house. However that looks to you, you hold it. You know, I'm a person of faith, and Habakkuk 2 says, write the vision and make it plain. That vision is going to tarry sometime, but if you keep working that vision, eventually it's going to come to pass.
Thank you all so much. I want to make some of the questions targeted now. Let's start with you, Amanda. What policies do you see as essential to fight for the closure of the wage gap between Black women and white men? And if you want to further expand on maybe what are some issues like childcare and healthcare, et cetera, how those specifically work to either impede or could work for Black women's prosperity.
Yeah. I mean, so I think everyone here on the call and is hopefully educated on why we're here and why this day. And this day is Black Women's Equal Pay Day, because this is also the day that it takes for Black women to make the same amount of money that a white man does in one calendar year. It takes us this many extra months and days. And so, you know, in the workforce, and when we look at that wage gap for Black women simply stems from segregation and racism. And I know I sound like I'm beating the old drum, but like we're talking about it now, so let's talk about it. And that the idea of like people of color and women are overrepresented in some fields that are low wages, while white men are represented in overrepresented in other fields that are high wage, right? And so, however, like, you know, when we think about that, we also need to think about things of like sex discrimination and racism in the hiring process, you know, the things that create these invisible barriers that we forget about in order to attain the salary or the hourly pay that we have. And so, you know, those things that we can do here in Georgia, and I know 9 to 5 was participating in that. We started with Ban the Bots, and then we can also move ban pay history. Because most hiring agencies will use your pay history as to kind of cripple your negotiations, right? Because they're looking at your past pay history and they already know where they're going to gauge you in salary range. While you can't argue from the top down, you're arguing from bottom down and at the lower scale. And so if we were to move to an initiative like that of banning the pay histories, we would actually give women of color, specifically Black women in Georgia, a better start. Just in the job market. And that's not just salary, we're talking about hourly too, right? And also, you know, you don't have to disclose that information. You can if you want, but you know, I'm just saying, like, but if we had a policy that actually supported that would actually be an intentional policy directly talking about making an economic justice move for Black women. Also, we need to amend laws that are around preempting fair scheduling. And then also paid family leave and minimum wage increases so that local governments can advance economic mobility for Black women. The state hems a lot of these local governments and county agencies from their overriding laws and legislation that does not allow for folks to fight for that 15 to say like in a Savannah or in a Augusta. And it only can happen in a government organization or entity rather than making it a mandate for this is how we live this life in the whole city. And those things need to be amended. They need to be looked at. They were created at a time way long before, and we need to really get up to speed. Also, we need to improve workforce training. Due to occupational segregation, including this for Black women, many of them are left out of state funding training because gender and race specific measures in the WIOA plan are actually not counted. And so some of these great local workforce agencies that do job training could actually, with a check mark around your gender and race, could actually prioritize Black women in these programs and making sure that they have the same access as their counterparts in these job trainings, especially being able to enter higher earning, high demand fields and significantly enhance their chances of economic self-sufficiency and security. So those are just some of the policies that we can think of. I think, and I think it's important to think about those policies in that in that scope that they need to be amended, that they need to be looked at, that they need to be intentional. They need to be directed for Black women and other women of color because Black women traditionally are always suffering with low wages. That prevents them from saving, right? Because if you're already barely making it, you already have the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of, any kind of medical necessity. So your ability to save is limited, right? Especially if it's a single family income. And then if we look at childcare costs, so if our childcare costs more than what we make at the job, what's going to happen? We either going to quit childcare or we're going to have to add more jobs, which then also directly impacts how we run our homes, right? So Black women are always being forced to make these huge if this or that, these decisions because we don't have the fair access that we need. And then lastly, like if we also look at health insurance is too costly. And I don't mean it as like the copay, but I mean as the pay that they take out of your paycheck is too costly. That woman is going to decide, is this job worth it? Is this health insurance worth it? And start making some real tough decisions. So, we have to look at the whole woman, right? And when we talk about intentional planning and policies that need to be updated, if we're not intentionally planning around what a whole life looks like, working in a job or starting a business, then we're not helping anybody in this moment.
Thank you, Amanda. And I'm happy you mentioned childcare. Rhonda, I want to put this question specifically to you. How can Black women prepare themselves for times of societal financial insecurity? Specifically, I'm curious about your perspective in being someone who runs a childcare business during COVID, and seeing the childcare crisis that we're in. So I guess two questions: how do you, how can Black women and you as a business owner yourself, kind of guard against some of those financial insecurities during times like this? And then also just your personal opinion, how has it impacted you as a child care provider?
I'm going to go back to my initial comment is sacrifice. You really, really have to try your best. I do understand everybody's not in a position to save, but that was what got me here. When I got those tax returns back, I was able to manage my household. So I would just save them and let them roll over. And that's how I was able to invest in myself and, start my business. Now, it wasn't all of what I needed, but it gave me a great head start. And so I'm a big person of living below my means and not exhausting my means. So I may make this, but I'm kind of living right here. So I can always have a nest egg to help me. Now, everybody may not be able to make those sort of decisions. So when it comes to childcare, I serve a community to where majority of, or a great deal of my parents are on the state subsidy. So I try my best to work with them. And then me being in the position to be not just a childcare provider, but a quality rated childcare provider, I get a little bit more from the government. So I have a little bit more leeway to be able to assist my parents and help them. So I do all that I can to help them. The bottom line is, though, some of these people have lost their jobs. Some have elderly parents that live in their home and they're too afraid to take the risk. So as it affects me as a child care provider, there were some decisions that had to be made. Some looking at the budget, looking at that profit and loss statement, looking at the bottom line to see what can be altered to make sure that when these families are ready to come back, I'm still here. I actually just purchased a building 2 weeks before, so I'm in two different places. I'm trying to make sure this building gets where it needs to be to open that one and still maintain this one. But I've had the ability to make sure that my credit was good. I kept my savings together. And these are the two most important things when you're trying to build a business, in my opinion, because you always have to be able to have access to some sort of capital to keep yourself afloat.
And just to expand upon that a little bit more, I know that you yourself were able to utilize ACE, Access to Capital for Entrepreneurs. Can you talk about that experience? I know Gloria and both MarRhonde mentioned about the difficulty, although we are the fastest growing entrepreneurs, the difficulty to get access to capital. And what your experience was working with an organization like ACE, and your experience.
ACE is the most amazing thing, or entity that could have happened to my business. They were so supportive. Anything that I needed, I mean, from business coaching to accounting to strategic marketing and planning. There's such a host of things because I've been with them since 2013 that it was very difficult to kind of name them all. But they have given me assistance in so many ways because I was a journalist before I started my business. So I didn't have any knowledge of a business or how it ran, but they made sure that anything that they thought that they could see to help me help strengthen my position, they did. So I highly, highly recommend, Access Capital for Entrepreneurs. All these women out there that want to start a business, you have to get your business plan together. But again, they have the Women's Center that can help you navigate through those waters. They will also instruct you on help you in regards to what is my vision. Let me make sure it's clear. Let me make sure I'm clear on my vision. What research do I need to do to make sure that this business will be successful? And there's just so many wonderful things I could say about them. And that was my way, because as we know, we can go to a financial institution and have decent credit, maybe even have a little saved, and you still may not get that loan. You still may not, because of the disparity of everything that's it's just systematic. So I went to them. That was the first place I went, and I've had a relationship.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. MarRhonde, can you talk about the ways in which you see Black women drive the economy, specifically in Savannah, and maybe what some of your experience was like working in economic development in Savannah?
Sure. What we are seeing in our community is not very different from what the trends are showing nationally. I am seeing a increase of African American women starting professionally licensed businesses. For example, engineering, architecture, some landscape design. These types of the businesses that are associated with the construction boom that we are having, even though it does not seem as though construction is slowing down any. And I have noticed that the calls that I'm getting are from women who are starting construction related businesses because they have worked in construction in some shape, form, or fashion, but they want to own their own venture in that regard. And so they are stepping out there. They have the experience needed. They are doing things from owning dump trucks that they can rent out to driving. I said engineering and architecture earlier. I actually got a call the other day from a young lady who was starting a logistics company. And she bought the 18-wheelers because we're situated here of the fourth largest port in the nation, and there are millions and millions and millions of dollars that are coming through that port, and it's got to move. Someone has got to move it. Once it gets off the ship, it's got to get to where it's going, and in a timely fashion. And she started her business, and she was getting certified, and she was ready to receive that business. And so she had positioned herself well. She had worked for another logistics company, and she was taking advantage of where she is and the economy around her. So these are the types of things that we are seeing in our community. And they are participating in the primary economic drivers in our community, and they are preparing themselves for tomorrow and doing it soundly and comprehensively.
Can you talk a little bit more about the MWBE, I believe, certification process and what that looks like?
So the City of Savannah has a minority and women-owned business enterprise program certification. And that certification program looks almost identical to the Georgia Department of Transportation's process for DBE certification. The primary difference is that the City of Savannah launched the MWBE certification in 2002, and it ran up until 2018. At that particular point in time, the city went with the state's DBE program, and then this year, as effective June 1st, relaunched our own MWBE certification. And that certification, if you are certified MWBE, you have to be local. Your business has to operate in the incorporated city limits of the city of Savannah. And so a lot of the requirements for that certification is identical to that of the Department of Transportation, such as your venture must be at least 51% owned and controlled by a minority or a woman. And when we say a woman, we mean mostly a Caucasian woman. And so once that is able to be identified, you may have a partner, a minority partner, someone who owns 49%, and they do not have to be minority, but the individual holding 51% or more must be a minority. Who is considered a minority? African Americans, Hispanic, Native Americans, Asians, Island Pacificers, and subcontinent Asian Americans, as well as women, are in those classifications that are considered to be minority. They're the federally recognized minority classifications. Economic disadvantage means an individual who does not have a personal net worth that exceeds $1.32 million. And that $1.32 million does not take into account your personal residence. So we're talking about your net assets exceeding that amount. And so if you come under that threshold, you can apply for this designation. And that is consistent with the Georgia Department of Transportation. If your firm is already certified by GDOT, GMSDC, or NMSDC, the National Minority Supply Diversity Council, or is 8A certified under the SBA, you can get fast-tracked in the MWBE program. And of course, you have to have a City of Savannah business license and have had that business license for no less than 1 year. So that's the qualifications to becoming certified. But how you go about doing that is there's an application that is on our website that is comprehensive, and it has a roadmap within it. And once you successfully complete that application, you can turn it in. There is a finite number of team members that work on this, including myself, so that your materials stay confidential. And a site visit is included in that once you have gone through the review process and have been thoroughly reviewed by the team. You will be visited by either myself or my colleague, Deanna Gibbs, and based on the evidence of that site visit, manifesting everything that you put in that application to demonstrate your ownership and control of your business. What we are looking for is for that site visit to be the actualization of your application. If you say that you have X number of contracts, we want to look at your contracts. We want to look at your communications. We want to see that the minority partner is truly directing that business and demonstrating control. And so once all of that is done, we will more than likely certify you, barring anything that is an outlier that would negatively impact your situation. But you get certified, and then you're on the city's list for being a minority or MWBE firm. That carries the same weight as being a DBE certified with us. I believe other agencies still take our MWBE certification, which would be Chatham County as well as the school system. So there are benefits to being certified, and that certification is quite simply translated into a verification that when those agencies are doing business with you, you are indeed who you said you are, and you've gone through a process to verify your business and your business's operation and capabilities.
Awesome. I hope our Savannah folks heard that, caught that game, and get certified for sure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Gloria, I want to ask you, there may be some folks on, like, let's say, they've got a hustle, they do some hair, they sell some lashes, I don't know, but they've got a small hustle and they want to turn it into a business. First, how do you see people taking that leap from hustle, to a business? And what are some like common pitfalls that folks run into?
Thank you for that question, Michael. Well, what I recommend for anyone who wanted to legitimize their business is to ensure that you understand not only the industry, but the market that you're in. Okay, so if you put your lash business out there, is your market sustainable? Are you in an area where it's just, minorities, or are you able to venture out into other markets such as, college students, older women? You just can't say, I'm building this business for my friends. It has to be bigger than that. So you have to actually find out who your customers are and what your customers want. Find out what particular products or services that are actually currently available that may be competitive against what it is that you're already doing. And also find out if the customers that you currently have, are they, actually satisfied with the product that you're actually producing. So now you've done that industry or that market research and you want to start your business. One, you need to sit down and create a business plan. One, do you have the startup capital? Are you gonna rent or lease a building, or are you gonna purchase a building outright? You have to determine what's your fixed cost, what's your variable cost, what's your break-even point. Simply just saying I want to start my own business means you might have to rent a booth space until such time you save the money up to launch out on your own. The other mistakes that I see, and I'm thinking this question is actually geared towards, is doing things all by yourself. There is a particular slogan that says, Jack of all trades, master of none. You can't do everything by yourself, okay? You have to master the gift that you currently have. And if this means putting lashes on, make sure you go out and say, hey, is there a certification that I need to be, up my game in this lash game? Or is there a certain class I can take to make it more presentable? How do I market it? Do I need to buy the material to go to shows, hair shows? You got to be creative. You can't think local, because your local economy is not going to always sustain your particular business. So you have to launch out into different areas. It may be that you might have to travel a ways or a whiles just to go out and present your concept. You have to be willing to do that. The other term that a person uses, that we call in a business arena, starting their own business, is bootstrapping. I don't recommend bootstrapping to everybody. Everybody can't bootstrap, okay? That means starting with nothing and, you're just going to wing it till you make it. You can't do that. You have to have some capital set aside to sustain you while you grow your business. You're going to have to go out and go to these webinars, things such as SBA, SCORE, your local SBA DC offices. City of Savannah has an excellent resource center. We have entrepreneur centers as well down there. You have to go out and go to these classes to get more information on what it takes to start and grow your business. The other thing is like I just spoke of, is not having capital. A lot of people think, well, I'm going to start a business, and the first thing that come out their mouth, I'm going to get a grant. There are no grants to start businesses. I'm sorry. Okay. If you're not a disabled veteran, you're not going to get a grant to start a business. Or if you're not a nonprofit, even if you're a nonprofit, you're not always guaranteed to get a grant. So when you start a business, you got to have some sort of capital in place to either start it or to grow it until such time that you're able to decide whether you're brick and mortar, or you're going to be web-based, or you're going to be home-based. For instance, the lash business. If this is something that you're good at, I would not even create a business. I would keep doing it and get experience and save my money up, okay? Because then once you save your money up, after you've been paying booth rent for so long, save your money up and go out and find your own spot, okay? By that time, you should have enough capital You can go out and see what the cost is to lease a building, and so on and so forth. You know, leasing is not for everybody, but for you, I want you to be able to enjoy what it is that you do and not let it be a burden where I got to pay my mortgage, or I got to do this. You never having any money to do anything. You know me, I like taking vacations every year. Okay. If I don't got no money to take no vacation, I feel some type of way. You got to be the same way. I'm going to enjoy myself while I'm making this business grow. You can't always say, well, you know, gonna have to eat McDonald's today. I can't go to Panera Bread. You know, that's okay for the first start. But sometime or another, your knowledge base and your appetite for growth needs to elevate. So that means you need to change your speech. You might need to change who you are around, who that you're expressing this vision to, because not everybody is going to get on that bandwagon with you and start a business. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to say, who do you think you are? You think you're better than me? These are just some things that I'm just being real talk with. I've experienced it, and I've had seen other people experience it as well. The other thing is failing to create a business plan. I can't tell you how many times we've said this. You have to have a good business plan, because, say for instance, you got that 800 credit score. You're going to look for some capital from Wells Fargo, and you come up in there and you don't even have an adequate business plan. You don't even have 5-year projections. You haven't even did your market analysis. I mean, they're going to look at you like, yeah, you got an 800 credit score, but why would I want to do business with you? Say, for instance, what if your business tank in year 3? Do you have a backup? What other product service line can you introduce to the market that will sustain you to help you maintain the cost of this loan? So the other thing and the last thing, is, like I was saying, is failing to register your business. So a lot of people think just because I have an idea and I go out and I make a business card and I start a website, I got a legitimate business. Until you actually go to the Secretary of State's office, fill out the articles of incorporation, complete your operating agreement, on top of getting a business license from a municipality that you currently reside in, you are not a legitimate business. Okay. You can get in so much trouble by not following those particular processes. And the city of Savannah is even more detailed. Okay. You have to get an approval to be where you need to be and all that stuff. So understand what processes that you need to go through and plan for it. Do a checklist, do a checkbox. Every time that you move on an item, check it off. It just puts you that much closer to legitimizing what it is that you want to do.
Thank you. And I just also want to clarify for folks. I know we talked about Savannah, but all of these resources are statewide, right? So SCORE, and also, I'm sure it might look a little bit different in other cities, but becoming certified as a minority-owned business, those resources are out there statewide.
Yeah, SCORE is everywhere. All you have to do is Google and find a mentor, or either find a SCORE location. You can find one everywhere you are. We're everywhere.
And then I think Amanda also dropped that there's another organization called Small Business Majority. And earlier, Rhonda mentioned Access to Capital for Entrepreneurs, which is in Atlanta area. So I'm going to take some questions now from our audience. And I'm going to start with, what policies should we be fighting for to help Black business owners?
Hi. So I think it depends on the fight that we're in. So on the federal level, we need loan forgiveness for $150,000 and less. And that is something that they actually did not specifically tie into the PPP plan, which is the payment plan protection, or the PPA. And so right now we need that language to be clearer. We also need to remove a lot more of the barriers that were creating access that stopped a lot of for smaller businesses that were valued lower because they administrated this through local banks. A lot of the banks did not decide to actually loan out to people who were not already part of their banking system. So I mean, the program still has a lot of money in it. they need to go back and revise some of those provisions in that original CARES Act and law. They need to create an intentional loan forgiveness program for certain businesses with capital. And then on top of that, we need a long-term strategy to sustain small businesses nationally and then also in the state of Georgia. A lot of what people don't realize is a lot of small businesses make up the majority of the economy in Georgia. And that's especially when you get outside of Atlanta, there are a lot of small businesses that are thriving all over the state, but they're also very, they're unprotected. And no one's really advocating for them in order to make sure they're protected. And they're also majority owned by Black women.
And really quickly, would you mind just sharing a little bit about the People Power Prosperity report and initiative, and really quickly, like how folks can either plug in or just know more about what's happening with that?
Yes, so we have a plan. It's a campaign called People Power Prosperity. It is a partner with 9 to 5 Small Business Majority Faith in Public Life. We are working on proactive fiscal policy agendas that specifically discuss around corporate tax revenues, reviewing those, recategorizing those in Georgia, looking at double deductions for people who make over $240,000, making that deduction process a little bit more fair and equitable so everyone can get a piece, a state earned income tax credit. We're looking at how do you fully fund education, making the workforce development or the workforce plan that Georgia has more equitable and accessible as well. And then I think one of the last things that we're really, really pushing, we push a higher tobacco tax in order to fund and help some of these social services, but also just, our small business owners that we work with now support Medicaid expansion because they look at how many of their employees are underinsured, even themselves as small business owners, right? Or they're being priced out of the market. And so these are the things that we look at as a whole of being a proactive agenda in order to address all of Georgia's needs for every Georgian, not just for a select few who are top earners that get to participate in really high double deductions and tax credits. And if you guys want to engage, if you guys want to engage, we will, it's late, y'all. We will have a lot of opportunities for advocacy in the next couple of weeks. One of the main ones will be if we see this special session or not. One of the things that we're hearing from small business owners, especially those who were the cosmetologists who went out in the field first and took that fire, and then those long-running, I know Rhonda probably knows, those long-running childcare centers that did not close, was that they were pushed and they were asked to do this thing, but they were not supported in getting PPE. They were not given those COVID dollars to make sure their businesses were safe or healthy. They were just encouraged to open Georgia back up. And we're really looking at those folks are now hurting because that's a new budget line item that no one expected, either for their personal home or for their business. And there needs to be some serious advocacy about where those COVID dollars live and how do we get those COVID dollars in the hands of people who are deciding to open up businesses, right? Or keep trying to sustain their business through this unprecedented time. So we'll be having a lot of call to actions. Budget is one of the main discussions, and it impacts everyone. Small business owners care about the budgets because they're families. They have childcare, they have needs, they have health insurance. Entrepreneurs are the same things as small business owner. So everyone needs to get around this conversation about what they are doing with our money, where are they putting our money and spending our money, and not fight over us and them, but really asking them to take a look at themselves and how they're operating our budget in Georgia, and are those dollars actually being used in social services, and are they being used to get people back on their feet?
Thanks, Amanda. Rhonda, a question for you. There's a question around, you mentioned being quality rated as well as receiving. One of the ways you said, in terms of recession proofing, yourself was around, you had already set up some government contracts and things. So the question was, how did you kind of engage with that initially, and how did you get those?
I stay on top of everything in my field. You know, I read every single email that comes through, and even though I am been in business for over a decade now, I still continue to do research all the time. When it came around to quality rated, it was an initial all daycare centers. At first, it wasn't all, but it was just that extra bonus. So maybe how like a hotel is rated by stars. It was the same thing with the daycare. So I always know that when the state starts an initiative, that it's eventually going to be a regular practice. So I did it early on, about 4 years ago, and it was one of those things where they give you just a little added bonus for going above and beyond just the standard. And so again, I just research all the time. It depends on whatever your field is. You go to those websites that monitor those fields, and I just continue to look. I look for updates all the time, and if anything that comes up that looks like it is something that will not just monetarily help my business, but I really am passionate about my business, and I want it to be the best. So I stay abreast on what can I do next to put me in the upper echelon, right along the side of these corporate daycares.
Y'all hear that? And stay knowledgeable. Know what's happening in your field. Yeah. If you all have any other questions, I know we have folks live streaming from Facebook as well and a couple other platforms. We still have a few more minutes. We could take a couple more questions. So if you all want to send them my way, you can. And also for the panelists, if you all have any kind of final, here's one before I say that. How does the census affect small business owners?
So I would need to know specifics, because the census affects all of us, but if you're a small business owner looking at the census and the data that's drawn from the census, that's going to be in zoning and opportunities and what they're building in those areas and the resources that are being given within that zoning and that information that is happening from the census. So I think it's more so like, are you looking at it for location purposes? Are you looking at for because people increase in population size, more federal and state dollars will be dedicated. It'll be more federal dollars, but will be dedicated to this area to be developed. Or I think you got to kind of drill that question down a little bit more.
Okay, so if whoever posed that question, if you'll kind of drill it down a bit more, we'll get that. We'll tap in a little bit more from our panelists. Gloria, did you have something you wanted to say to that?
Because Amanda was actually drilling it down and she didn't even know it. The information that is actually gotten from the census actually helps a small business owner when it comes to customer acquisition and your target market. So say, for instance, you want to put a restaurant in an area. One, you need to make sure, what is the salary range of individuals that actually stay there? What is the age range? Okay, can they afford to pay it? What is the foot traffic going to be like? So that is how you actually build the archetype of your particular customer. So if you're even starting a business, the census is where I would actually tell you to go to get some of that information you're going to need for your market analysis, because it helps you gauge, okay, who are my customers? Can they even afford to pay? It's just almost like you putting in a Macy's in the middle of, a closed down area of downtown. Make that make sense. Who's going to go down there if you don't have any money to go shop at Macy's? So that is what I tell all of our clients, to always use the census to gauge what their customer acquisition would look like. And if the people that you're actually targeting are able to purchase, buy, and sustain your business model.
We had a few more roll in. Any tips on branding your intellectual properties, logos, etc., trademark through the government?
Okay, I cannot stress how important that is. First of all, the intellectual property is anything that is created by you, on simpler terms, created by you, Would it be an ideal, a logo, a play, a mark, whatever it is, I highly recommend that you pay the particular dollars to get it to be a registered trademark. Why? Because one, it protects anybody from infringing upon your particular brand. Like my brand is a fire and it has Exodus on it and it has connecting people and processes. It currently has a TM on it because it is in the process of becoming a registered trademark. However, a TM signifies to anybody who sees that symbol that they cannot use that anywhere else in the state of Georgia. So therefore, if I'm trolling the internet and I see my flame of fire on somebody else's stuff, I can actually go after them because they're infringing upon my right. Now, it does cost to get your stuff registered and trademarked, but it'd be well worth it to have somebody steal your concept and make millions of dollars off of it, and you're just sitting there holding the bag because you didn't do anything about it. It's the same thing. I tell everybody, make sure you're not infringing upon others' copyrighted material. You know, you go out and you purchase a t-shirt, you say, oh, I like Donald Duck. I'm gonna put Donald Duck on my stuff. Guess what? Donald Duck is copyrighted. He's a registered trademark of the Disney company. So any likeness or image thereof of Donald Duck, if you use it, Walt Disney can shut you down. A prime example of this is today, Apple actually is going after a small business who has a pear as a symbol on their particular business. Okay, pear apple. You know, I can see, but guess what? Apple has millions of dollars and they can pursue it whether they win or lose. But you have to ask yourself, are you willing to stay in that fight? So you have to do some serious research, which is when you go through the application process, they go through the USPO system to verify that your trademark or your item is nowhere else in use in the state or in the world. So that is what the guarantee that you'll get. So when you guys see Exodus and it becomes an R, that means it is a registered trademark and nobody in the whole world can use that. It's the same concept with you guys.
Thank you. Well, we only have a few minutes left, but I just want to thank our panelists so much for just sharing all of this game and helping us out to make sure we can get rid of that pay divide and see Black women get access to capital and everything they need for their businesses. So I appreciate you all for joining us this evening. And hopefully y'all can hear me with this storm that is outside of my window that is growing. Hopefully my power doesn't go out.
Hi, Mica. The person that submitted the question, have them to put their email because Scora works with Deluxe. Deluxe constantly has webinars on trademark, and I can send them the information where they can actually sit down and watch a webinar for free at their leisure.
Awesome. Please share your emails. And I'm sure we can send out just a wrap up from the webinar as well with some additional resources. So absolutely. Thank you all so much. A few kind of last reminders and tips from 9 to 5 before we wrap up. I think we have a couple of things on the screen that have come up. Or maybe not. Okay. So just some reminders. If you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. I'm sure one of our team members can add our bit.ly to the chat, and you can click that and get registered to vote, as well as some key dates to be sure that you're registered to vote by. We also have a survey that we would love for you all to participate in if you haven't already. We want to hear about the impact COVID has had on you. And then we can also put up a link to the survey as well. Again, it's really important that we hear from our members and folks that we interact with so that we can be sure that the policies and the programs and even our chapter meetings all reflect what it is that our folks are experiencing. So we certainly want to hear from you, and we'll provide those opportunities, those links for the survey as well as the voter registration. And I think that's all of our reminders for this evening. If it's anyone from our 9 to 5 team that wants to chime in on anything I may have forgotten, please do. But otherwise, thank you again to our panel. to our panelists and everyone that had joined this evening for taking the time out to get this information is so important. And I just wish you all a great evening, and please stay tuned for additional resources and our next chapter meeting next month. Thank you so much. Bye. 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 Thank you.